25. That is also streamed and recorded on the committee's YouTube channel named EAL Committee. For the benefit of the public that may not be aware, preparations for the FY26 budget have presented challenges. For one, the continuing resolution passed by the House of Representatives required the district to reduce its current FY25 budget authority by $1.13 billion, creating pressure for the DC government on the already congressionally approved and enacted budget. Clearly, our government has not anticipated the continuing resolution to include the DC budget. Therefore, to address the new spending pressures on the current FY25 budget, the mayor has made reductions across the board and has announced a district-wide hiring freeze to hold escalating personnel expenditures. Today, the committee will examine the mayor's FY26 budget proposal that does not include furloughs, layoffs, or facility closures, thank goodness. Moreover, public safety and education will be fully funded, and there will be no changes to summer programming. Today's oversight hearing will glean more information about agency spending and budgetary concerns. For instance, the OEA needs staff training dollars. Perb is facing increased caseload and training needs. The Olrcb must manage various restraints on employee contracts and compensation packages until the new fiscal year of 26 begins on October 1, 2025. And the OIG requires additional FTEs to manage its fraud division services. Moreover, the agencies will identify spending pressures and any programmatic gaps or issues facing the district in coming months. I look forward to discussing the goals of these agencies for FY26 while also focusing on prioritizing district residents and retaining existing programming and resources as much as possible. Along the way, we will identify areas of success and areas for improvement to better support and maintain a robust and thriving workforce. Today, we will hear from our public witnesses, followed by our government witnesses. From the Office of Labor Relations and Collective Bargaining, the Office of Employee Appeals, and the Public Employee Relations Board, the Department of Human Resources, and the Office of the Inspector General. We expect our hearing to go fast because of where we are on budget. However, it is an important hearing because it really deals with all of our workforce in the district government, all 35,000 employees, and certainly our 27,000 unionized employees. So we want to take all the time that we need to make sure that anything that is necessary to keep the workforce moving forward is in fact before us and that we can move the agenda forward. So at this time, I'll recognize any of my colleagues. None? All right. So with that, I will move immediately to the hearing with our public witnesses. And we have three public witnesses. And we'll start with Ms. Ruth Wilcock and Mr. Eric Goulet, who is also the Ward 3 School Board Representative on the State Board of Education, and Ms. Tiffany Montgomery, another public witness. So if you would take the witness stand if you are here. Okay. All right. Well, it's my understanding we have Eric Goulet on. Mr. Goulet will take your testimony. Thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you, Chairperson Bonds, and thank you for holding this hearing today. I wish I could be there in person with you today to testify, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to do so virtually. Good morning, Chairperson Bonds, Council staff, and Inspector General Lucas. My name is Eric Goulet, Ward 3 representative for the DC State Board of Education. I am delighted to join you at today's Committee on Executive Administration and Labor FY26 Budget Oversight hearing on the Office of the Inspector General. I will be testifying in my individual capacity as Ward 3 representative today and not on behalf of the collective board. A stated mission of the DC Inspector General in the FY26 budget submission is to investigate matters pertaining to the DC government in order to prevent and detect mismanagement, waste, fraud, and abuse. I want to highlight an ongoing situation where OIG's resources devoted to investigations are particularly needed at this time to preserve the public interest and to prevent abuse from DC public school officials. DCPS recently abruptly changed deferral policies related to the kindergarten age of enrollment without any advance notice to parents or to private and parochial pre-K programs. DCPS has informed families whose children have birthdays prior to September 30th that their children must skip kindergarten and go directly to first grade, and it has voided previously approved developmental waivers that were issued by DCPS itself. DCPS has offered to assess children and says it will consider demoting them back to kindergarten, but only in the fall after children struggle in first grade. In at least two instances, DCPS ordered families to leave pre-K 4 programs with approximately 2 months remaining in the school year and said they must enroll their children in DCPS kindergarten. And when the families rightfully refused to do so, Chancellor Louis Farabee and DCPS school leadership then submitted frivolous reports to the Child and Family Services Agency, known as CFSA, for truancy and educational child neglect to retaliate against families who were advocating for the best interests of their young children. A 5-year-old attending a 5-day-a-week pre-K 4 class is neither truant nor a victim of educational neglect. Chancellor Farabee justifies his actions by saying that DCPS doesn't consider a pre-K program in a private or parochial school to be a school. And since DCPS is a mandatory reporter, he claims he has no choice but to report families for truancy. I do not find this explanation credible at all. I request that OIG investigate who at DCPS ordered these frivolous reportings and why. Intimidation of parents advocating for their children cannot be tolerated. This retaliation is designed to scare parents into accepting an ill-conceived policy change that DCPS implemented without any proper notice to parents or facilities. Further, frivolous reports to CFSA distract that agency from using its limited resources to help children who are actually experiencing child neglect in the district. Thank you for the opportunity to testify before the committee today. I'm available to answer any questions that you may have, and I'm available to connect with OIG staff after the hearing and your staff, Councilmember Bonds, to discuss this matter further, because the State Board of Education will be taking up a resolution and the transmission of legislation to Council on this to try to resolve the matter in favor of parents and their children who have, in this case, done nothing wrong whatsoever and just want to be able to attend kindergarten in the fall. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Will you be submitting it in writing as well?
Yes, Councilmember Bonds, I apologize for the delay in submitting it. I have submitted it through the portal at this time. It may not have come through just yet, but it was submitted this morning.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And when we have the OIG before us, we'll take the time to ask them a little bit about this matter. Okay?
Thank you, and I'm glad to follow up with your staff and OIG staff afterwards, and they can connect with me at eric.goulet@dc.gov to follow up further.
All right. Thank you very much. If I'm hearing you correctly, without having your testimony before me, you're really letting us know that young people that are enrolled in private kindergarten programs are being instructed to wait and go to first grade through our public school and charter school system. Is that what you're
It's close. There's a little bit more of a nuance to it.
All
So
right.
what has happened is a lot of our private pre-K programs have a slightly different enrollment period than the public pre-K. Public pre-K has an age cutoff of September 30th. Many of the private pre-K programs have just enrolled children at the age when school starts. So what happens is sometimes September birthdays are a year behind, or sometimes there's a student with a developmental delay that they decide they need to hold back a year. Previously, under the DC municipal regulations, those children are always then tracked through pre-K 4. They go to pre-K 3, pre-K 4, and then the elementary school principals will put them into kindergarten next, even if they have a birthday in September and would be eligible for first grade, because obviously they don't have the proficiency to be able to succeed in first grade. What DCPS has done this year is they've ordered age audits of all the schools and just as late as last week, pulled back kindergarten enrollments from parents with no notice whatsoever that this was going to be an issue, and told parents that their kids can no longer attend kindergarten at all, and they must go directly to first grade. Even though DCPS, by its own acknowledgement, has said in some of these cases the kids weren't ready for kindergarten this year. So it's just very disturbing. I mean, what it boils down to is parents push back. They said there's been no notice of this policy change, and there's been retaliation by DCPS against parents. And it's really the most appalling thing I've seen in all my time in DC government to have agencies not only taking away such a fundamental year from their children to attend kindergarten, the start of formal education, but then to try to punish parents and families with these reports to CFSA. I'm really disappointed in the chancellor. He's been directly involved in this, and it just concerns me about the whole DCPS system that this was allowed to occur in the first place.
All right. And so the issue is that this situation has caused young people of a certain age to move on to first grade.
Yes, and
Okay.
precluded them from attending kindergarten.
All
Exactly.
right. All right.
Thank you very
Okay.
much, Councilmember. I
Thank you very
appreciate
much.
the questions.
And we have your testimony now. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Well, that concludes our public witnesses. Thank you very much, Mr. Goulet.
It's great to see you again, and I hope you have a
You too.
successful budget period here, Councilmember.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, rather quickly, we have already moved on to our government witnesses. Oh. We will first examine the Office of Labor Relations and Collective Bargaining. The budget book for FY26 indicates a proposed operating budget of $3.4 million with 20 FTEs. And I see that the director and his team already ready to be sworn in. If you raise your right hand, we'll swear you in. You swear and affirm that the testimony that you present to us today to be truthful and correct. Thank you. And you can proceed with your testimony.
Hello, Chairperson Bonds, members of the committee, and committee staff. I'm E. Lindsay Maxwell II, the Director of the Office of Labor Relations and Collective Bargaining. I'm pleased to testify before you today on the fiscal year 25 to date budget and Mayor Bowser's proposed fiscal year 26 budget. As you know, Olrcb represents the executive branch in labor relations and collective bargaining for unionized employees at agencies under the mayor's personnel authority. Of the 37,000 employees in the district government, about 75% are unionized. My team negotiates in good faith with unions on the mayor's behalf, and when litigation arises, we vigorously defend the city's interest in compliance with all applicable laws and procedures. Olrcb's mission is to administer a comprehensive and centralized labor relations program on behalf of the mayor. To carry out this mission, Olrcb is divided into three sections. The first is the negotiations and contract administration section, which is responsible for negotiating collective bargaining agreements or CBAs. CBAs establish wages, benefits, and other terms of conditions of employment for unionized employees. Second, OLRCB's litigation section focuses on initiating, prosecuting, defending, and monitoring a wide range of litigation activities for and on behalf of agencies under the personnel authority of the mayor. This litigation activity consists primarily of grievance arbitrations, unfair labor practice complaints, enforcement actions, and arbitration review requests before the Public Employer Relations Board, or Perb. Litigation also arises from the negotiation activities carried out by OLRCB, such as interest arbitrations and negotiability appeals. The office has been successful in building relationships with unions to decrease unfair labor practice complaints, as well as grievance arbitration demands. This has saved the district millions of dollars. Third, the administrative section is responsible for providing vital agency support and conducting the research and analysis necessary to support management's position during the negotiations. This section also coordinates training for agencies regarding the Labor Relations Program and the legal obligations emanating from DC law and the CBAs. This fiscal year, my team is developing a comprehensive training program and is partnering with Dchr to deliver these services. This agency partnership will allow agencies to register for our training through PeopleSoft, which will track participants' attendance and will provide an option for labor courses to appear on a participant's training transcripts. This will provide a broad range of easily accessible training options, and our historically effective training courses will now reach more employees. Across all sections, OLRCB maintains an open door policy for both our client agencies and union leadership. This collaborative approach to labor relations in the District of Columbia has proven effective and will continue. The highlight of OLRCB's FY25 budget was a 10.4% increase in personnel funds, which added 3 new FTEs, including a labor economist position, bringing our FTE total from 17 to 20. Since the last budget hearing, we've hired 3 attorneys who support OLRCB's vital work. We greatly appreciate this committee's support and advocacy in expanding staff. The most notable change in FY25 is Congress nullifying the district's approved FY25 spending levels, reverting to FY24 spending levels, and thereby cutting the district's local budget by $1.1 billion. In response, the mayor issued Mayor's Order 2025-53. This impacted OLRCB's work as the mayor's labor advocate in 2 key ways. First, we cannot arbitrate cases until October 1, 2025. We've communicated this to our unions, and most understand the current fiscal constraints. And 2, our pending negotiated compensation contracts cannot be implemented until October 1st. We've also paused most compensation negotiations as we cannot commit the district to any new spending. Last week, Mayor Bowser presented the FY26 budget aimed to grow DC. The proposed FY26 budget for OLRCB represents a decrease in non-personnel funds. Specifically, OLRCB's budget is proposed to decrease by $192,000, representing an overall 5.3% decrease between FY25 and 26. OLRCB finds the decrease in non-personnel funds reasonable, and we appreciate that no cuts to FTEs or fringe benefits were made. In fact, the proposed FY26 budget reflects a 2.4% increase in personnel funds to align with projected fringe benefits. Despite the reduction in non-personnel funds, OLRCB remains focused on expanding training opportunities for agency management. Investing in training reduces risk by equipping managers with the tools they need to handle labor issues effectively, ultimately decreasing the city's exposure to litigation and settlement costs. We've also promoted a new supervisory attorney whose duties include proactively engaging with unions to resolve issues before they escalate to formal disputes. This addition to our leadership team comes at a critical time and reflects our commitment to labor peace and fiscal responsibility. In closing, the resources allocated to OLRCB are vital to supporting Mayor Bowser's continued efforts to strengthen and sustain a high-performing workforce that will contribute to her vision to grow DC. The council, and this committee in particular, remain a key partner in this work. Chairperson Bonds, I want to thank you for your steady leadership and deep engagement on labor relations. Your hands-on approach and partnership over the years have made a meaningful difference. I look forward to continuing our collaboration to advance shared goals. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today, and I'm happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you very much for your testimony. I do have a few questions about the, let's start with the re, the reduction in your budget, that dollar amount, the $192,000. Where are those cuts?
I'm going to pass that question to my Chief of Staff, Aisha Alt, who's sitting
All
next
right.
to me.
Councilmember, your indulgence, please, while I find the
Sure.
information.
Indeed.
Thank you. Councilmember, instead of me fumbling through here to find the line items, I do know that it's from NPS funding, and I would like to pass it to our AFO to answer the question specifically.
All right.
Thank you. I don't want to waste your time, Council.
All right.
Good afternoon. The decrease,
Would you turn your mic on? Now you're on. Okay.
okay, the net decrease of 193,000 is associated in two places. First, there's a decrease in NPS in the amount of 262,475 and an increase of 68,756 in PS. The increase in PS is mostly attributed by the fringe rate increase and 4 positions salaries increase. And the decrease in NPS of in the amount of 262 is associated with contractual services.
Right. And may I ask then, what are those contractual services that you're decreasing?
Part of that money, the contractual services money, comes from our PFM, our contractor, third-party contractor for labor economists. Councilmember,
PFM?
PFM. That's our labor economist, third-party contractor. And AFO.
So you just got your labor economist. How does this affect your delivery? And you wanted this labor economist so badly, and now you're suffering a loss. Is this, it's not for salary, what is it for? Supplies, or what is this?
Well-
Trying to understand, we are going to be concerned with every penny. And where you need your pennies, I want to be able to protect them. If you don't need the pennies, no problem.
Sure. Thank you, Councilperson. So what we have is first of all, we have not yet filled the labor economist position. It's actually under active recruitment at DCHR. We anticipate that once we get that labor economist on board, we won't need any longer the services of PFM.
All right. Okay, so then that is how the 192,000 disappears. Because it will be taken up in a real bona fide position with fringe benefits. Okay,
That's correct.
all right. So what is the timeline for this position to be filled?
We're actively recruiting right now. I mean, DCHR has it. So I think it'll be relatively a short turnaround time as soon as we work through the paperwork and red tape as it relates to recruiting. As you know, right now, under the mayor's order, we do have to jump through additional hoops to hire people. So
Yes.
that is taking us a little bit more time than normal.
All right, so you're telling me that the hiring freeze also affects even positions that were in progress as opposed to new positions.
That is correct.
Okay. Do you have any assurance that DCHR will move this process forward. And you will therefore be able to take advantage of this additional FTE by, let's say, October 30th of 2025.
I certainly can't guarantee it, but we're pushing for that. I'd be surprised if this position is still open come October. I would
All right.
imagine it should be filled in the next 30 to 60 days at the longest.
Okay, otherwise we'll have to do a supplement to get the services that you need until such time. That's what I'm trying to understand.
Understood.
Okay, and before my colleagues think that this is, double um funding source, I want to know what you may know so that we can protect it if we need to.
Understood. Thank you.
All right, and we know you need the economists
Yes, ma'am. we do.
desperately. Yes, you do. Thank you for that. Um, You indicated you wanted to focus on expanding training opportunities for agency management. What does that mean? Are you speaking exclusively of your team or agency management in other parts of the government?
Agency, what we do at Olrcb is we sort of coordinate the training. Some of it we do ourselves. Sometimes we might pull somebody in from the outside, but that training is delivered directly to those folks who are labor liaisons at their agency. So around the district and most of our large agencies where we have a union presence, there is an employee at that agency who is tasked with being the labor liaison. Usually that's somebody in HR or they're in the administration or leadership of that particular agency. But that person is responsible for the most part, monitoring the labor relationship, letting us know when there are problems, handling things like impact and effects bargaining when they can. Some of our agencies actually are very good at it. They do it themselves. But we provide training to all of our labor liaisons as it relates to new things in the law, cases that we feel like they could learn from that have been going on across the district that they may not know of, and just providing a good place for all of our labor liaisons to get together at least once a quarter to share ideas, tips, and strategies.
Okay, I have a few, I think I have a few more questions here. Oh, got it. Okay, I'll try this one. As far as you know, for the FY26 budget proposal, is there enough funds to fund the CBAs of all of the active negotiations that you were involved in before we put a hold on everything?
Sure. So when you ask about, do we have funding? We don't actually fund the CBAs. That information comes from the city administrator. They determine how much we can fund.
We know,
Mhm.
but you're the negotiator. And
Absolutely.
so when you negotiate in good faith, I'm trying to get a sense of whether or not of those contracts that you've already negotiated, do we have monies in the 4-year plan? Maybe that's an easier question.
Yes.
In our 4-year plan? Yes, the answer is yes.
The answer is yes.
All right. Do we have resources that we would have to expend in the FY26 plan?
When you say expend fi- finances for what? Additional, you mean in addition to the CBAs that are already?
No, the CBAs. Do we need to spend money on any CBA in FY26?
I mean, any CBA that's not expired and hasn't been renegotiated would have to be funded.
All right.
I don't know if that's an adequate.
No,
answer to-
that is very helpful. And what is can you give me the dollar amounts? Estimated amounts?
I cannot.
You
I
cannot.
wouldn't have any idea. I mean, a lot of this depends on what the unions ask us for when they get to the table. So when they want to start negotiating, they'll provide for us an offer, and then we start to work with that to figure out how much money we have in the budget to accommodate that request.
All right, and so then of those contracts that we've already negotiated that are in force and would be in force in 2026, do we have the monies there? to
Yes.
Pay out that?
Yes.
We do.
Just for example, I would like somebody like, I'm assuming you're talking about like WTU, for instance, is a CBA that we negotiated. It's now in place. It's in force. The council's approved it. We've handled the actual paying out on that. And that agreement covers the years that you also talk about. It covers 25, 26, 27. So to answer your question, yes, money for that contract has been taken into account when the district does its budget for 26.
All right, that's the answer I'm kind of looking for. And for any of the other unions, is that true as well?
Yes, if we're going to negotiate it, then we
All
have
right.
the money for it.
Okay. I just don't want there to be some questions. Again, as I am with my colleagues, I don't want anyone to think that there's a pot of money that is, the estimate is too high, and therefore there's some dollars to be had by swiping some of those dollars.
No. As far as
Okay,
I know, there
okay.
that does not happen. No.
All right. The mayor shared that she would shift the costs from FY 25 to FY 26 or 27 in the workforce development. And can you explain how this impacts collective bargaining agreements, generally speaking, and if it applies to retroactive pay?
I don't know how well I can answer that question. Let me tell you what I do know. I do know that money's been set aside for those contracts that we've already negotiated. If we negotiate them, there's money already for those contracts. Moving forward, we would proceed with new CBAs when the money's been allocated or when the city administrator says, listen, we're ready now to start negotiating another agreement. I believe he testified at the budget rollout that we wouldn't be paying out on CBAs already negotiated, new CBAs until October.
Okay. Now, you want to talk a little bit about the application of retroactive pay? Because I believe there was some reference in the rollout, as you call it, that indicated that future negotiations would not include retroactive pay. Is that your understanding also?
That is correct. We're currently under a wage freeze. So to give you an example, I couldn't negotiate a new contract that starts in 26. That would include a retro for 25 because in 25 we're under a wage freeze.
All right,
So there's no retro pay
all right,
by order of the statute.
all right. And how does that affect any negotiations that are in arbitration at this time?
That wouldn't affect anything that's in arbitration right now. Things that are in arbitration those funds have already been earmarked. I'm assuming you're talking about interest arbitration. Those funds have already been earmarked. They're earmarked the minute that we say we're going to arbitration.
Okay. All right. And so when we look at the budgets for our workforce, we need to make sure that we look at what, 3 different categories to make sure that we have the pay that's allocated for FY 26, any funds that have been set aside for arbitration, correct?
Correct.
All right. Okay. Just want to make sure.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. This is about costs associated with delays. AFGE Local 1403 and the district finally have concluded negotiations with a complete collective bargaining agreement. To date, the union waits for the transmission of their collective bargaining agreement to the council for a review and a vote. Are you aware of any potential costs associated in instances where the agreement is completed but hasn't been transmitted to the council?
No cost.
During the performance oversight season, you listed about 35 expired contracts. Are there any associated costs to the district where unions operate on expired collective bargaining agreements?
No cost.
So how do we pay them? Just continue?
Well, if you're talking about the ones that aren't negotiated, they're not negotiated yet. So we would start worrying about paying them once we actually start negotiations, because those will need to fit into the 5-year plan, effective whenever we start negotiating. So there would be no cost on the front end.
All right, so of the 35 that have expired, how many that are not going to be negotiated in FY '26?
You're asking me how many of the contracts that we have that are expired are going to have to be negotiated in
Will
26?
not be.
Will
nego-
not be negotiated.
Yes.
So I'd have to get that answer for you. I can tell you, just off the top of my head, generally speaking, I believe it's roughly 5 to 10 that we would need to tackle in FY '26.
So you would negotiate 5 to 10. Okay. Can you get me some idea of rough numbers? I know when I've had the occasion to speak with, um, I'll say the budget office, they have indicated, round numbers, 100,000, 500,000, something like that.
So let me just be clear. We can get you the names of those contracts that are expiring.
Okay.
The names of how much it's going to cost is not something that we will know until we actually start
Okay.
negotiating.
And it's okay to tell me in millions,
No problem.
All right, thank you so much. Of the 7 active negotiations that you have cited, 3, this is in your questions that you returned to us, answers you returned. 3 unions were still on the ground rules stage of negotiations. What type of issues are parties encountering when determining the ground rules?
Unlike the situation that we had before with a union that was having issues with ground rules, I think what you're seeing right now is a function of the budget and the realities of the budget. Yeah, we are at the ground rule stage, but we're just not moving forward because there's no funds. So I don't want to blame it on ground rules. I would just say that we're at the ground rule stage. Once we get the green light to move forward with negotiating, we'll wrap up ground rules and get to the table.
If legislation were proposed to require ground rules in every instance where you would have negotiations, how would this benefit the process, or would it be a detriment to the process?
Ground rules always help negotiations. What goes in ground rules are who's going to actually be at the table, who speaks for the parties, how many people are allowed to come to a session, who's a guest, how many times can a guest come, what times of the week are we going to negotiate. All those things are very important because you don't want to start a negotiation flying by the seat of your pants trying to figure it out. So we would welcome ground rules. And just as a side note, we have the ability at Olrcb to create rules. And I think what we told you at our last hearing was that we were in the process of developing our own rules that we could implement. So part of, as I spoke earlier about us promoting a new supervisory attorney, that's part of the functions of that position, is to actually give me some direction as it relates to what rules can we implement, and certainly ground rules would be one of them.
And if you had ground rules as a sort of requirement or regulations associated with your agency, would it move the negotiations process along?
It should. It doesn't always, but it should.
What are some of the events where your agency retains outside counsel? And what's the frequency of doing that? I know you're the boutique labor entity, but just wondered.
Well, OLRCB doesn't engage with outside counsel. If there's anything, any litigation that's going on in court, we usually discuss that with the MOC, and then I think just standard practices, OAG handles anything that's in court.
Okay. Well, I guess then this question must be related to your economist, and that is what's the agency's highest contractual spending utilizing outside counsel in FY 25?
The only person outside that we would be hiring is the PFM. I don't call them outside counsel. They are an outside contractor, but we have used them in the past.
And you said PFM?
Yes.
What's a PFM?
I forget what the letters stand for, but they're an economist.
Okay.
They do research
right.
for us.
Okay, so it's not the name of a firm, it's the type of.
No, PFM is the name of the firm. I think it's
Okay.
called PFM.
Okay, that's the firm.
Consulting.
All right, I'm
Yes.
sorry. Okay. Helps us. Thank you. In the mayor's proposed FY 26 budget, you're poised to receive an increase of $5,000 one-time funding for equipment. Can you elaborate on the equipment? Is it computers, laptops, printers, scanners,
Yes,
all of that?
yes, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Director Maxwell.
Sure.
We're very happy to hear from you today and um, see where you are and what your needs are. You'll, of course, let us know if you need more money, right?
As always, yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. That was easy. Okay, excellent. All right, thank you. Next, we will hear from the Office of Employee Appeals. This, of course, is an independent administrative adjudicatory agency. And it's governed by 5-member board and has a full staff to process appeals filed by the district government's 37,000 member workforce. And we will welcome Director Barfield and her team. And if you'll raise your right hand, we'll swear you in. Do you swear and affirm your testimony and any statements that you make before us today to be truthful and complete?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And please proceed with your testimony.
Good afternoon.
Now you're on. Okay.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Bonds and members of the Committee on Executive Administration and Labor. My name is Sheila Barfield, and I am the Executive Director of the Office of Employee Appeals. I'm joined today by Himchan Himraj, my Chief Operating Officer, and Paul Blake, the agency's Fiscal Officer. Thank you for this opportunity to testify before you and the committee regarding OEA's proposed operating budget for fiscal year 2026. As you know, the mission of OEA is to render impartial, legally sufficient, and timely decisions on appeals filed by District of Columbia government employees. OEA has jurisdiction over appeals in which an employee has been removed as a result of an adverse action for cause, placed on enforced leave for 10 days or more, suspended for 10 days or more, reduced in grade, subjected to a reduction in force, and appeals affecting a designation of the employee's position as safety sensitive. OEA offers district government agencies and employees a 3-part appeal process consisting of mediation, adjudication, and petitions for review. The mediation process allows the employee and the agency an opportunity to resolve their disputes without going through the lengthy and costly adjudication process. The adjudication process results in disputes being resolved by an administrative judge who issues an initial decision and finds in favor of either the agency or employee. The petition for review process provides an impartial review of initial decisions by OEA's board and culminates with the board issuing an opinion and order. For fiscal year 2026, the mayor has proposed funding OEA at $2,541,732 with 14.5 FTEs. In a year with limited resources, a major concern of OEA was whether we would have adequate funding to fill the vacant senior administrative assistant position in FY 2026. In view of this concern, at the budget review team meeting last November, I submitted an enhancement request in which I had asked for additional money to fully fund this position. Given the agency's proposed funding level for FY 2026, it appears that this position has been fully funded. Therefore, we are hopeful that we will be able to fill this position in FY 2026. The person serving in this role will provide support to the entire agency, thereby ensuring that OEA is able to perform at its optimum ability and achieve its mission-critical goals. OEA also submitted a second enhancement request in which we asked for an additional one-time funding amount of $253,000 to upgrade the agency's case tracking system. I recognize that while it is unlikely that this request can be considered at this time, I nevertheless wanted to make the committee aware of OEA's future plans to have full electronic filing. When we are able to realize full electronic filing, I believe we will also realize improved efficiency by having reduced postage costs, by being able to provide real-time case updates, and by streamlining operational processes. This modernization effort will aid in quicker decision issuance, reduced delays, and provide long-term cost savings while enhancing our ability to handle current case volumes and complexities. In the meantime, we have developed a system that allows the parties to email their petitions for review, agency answers, and petitions for appeal, I should have said, and allows us the ability to transmit initial decisions and opinions and orders by email. This, however, is only a stopgap measure until we secure funding for full electronic filing. Our last enhancement request was for an additional one-time funding amount of $30,000 to support the legal team's training needs. Even though this request may not be ripe for consideration at this time either, I again wanted to make the committee aware of OEA's future plans with respect to staff learning and development. What we're really seeking here is a line item for training itself with dedicated funding for training, which we never have had in previous budgets. So when the funding becomes available, we would still like that. I believe a strategic investment in continuing legal education will enhance the team's ability to handle complex legal challenges, thereby positioning OEA to better serve district government agencies and employees. Thank you for your consideration of our budget, and this concludes my testimony, and I'm able to answer any questions. I'm available to answer any questions you have. I hope I'm able to answer them as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your testimony. And we're going to see what we can do about this $30,000 need. It seems small, but
Yes.
we'll see. We'll see what we can come up with.
Yes.
I did want to talk a little bit about your electronic filing system. And you indicated that if you had it, it would reduce postage costs. So what does the law say today about how you must correspond with parties? Does it stipulate you must post it, or is it silent on that?
I don't think that the law actually says that it has to be sent first class mail. I don't think it says that. But at that time that law was enacted, that was really the only way that things were done. But we have, since then, through our email stopgap system, we have been transmitting these decisions by way of email. If the parties, well, really the employees, provide their email address, of course, we know the government email's address. So we are able to distribute all of our decisions to the government agencies by way of email, but only to employees if they have provided us an email address, and that, if they have an email.
Mm-hmm.
So if they haven't, then we have to still go through the mail, posting it through the mail process.
So I was just wondering if there was a requirement to use the post, but what I'm hearing is that apparently we don't have any requirement as to if you're the employee, you do not necessarily, is there some form that is completed that would say to the employee, give us your
Yes.
personal email address?
We ask them to, but some don't, or some don't provide that information. And so if they haven't provided it for us in their already in the process, we don't then go back when it comes time to send the initial decision or the opinion in order. We don't then try to track it down. If they haven't provided it to us, then we just send it by way of mail.
All right. And so the employee may, at that time that you reach a decision, not have a government email address.
Well, most likely, no, they don't. By that point,
right. And it's considered confidential and you do not.
Yes.
Yeah, I got it.
If they have, of course, been terminated, then
Right.
their email addresses are no longer usable,
Correct.
operable.
Correct. 253,000. So even if you had a full-blown system, you still would have this problem of some employees you would not be able to reach them unless we stipulated through some affidavit process, I suppose, that you must give us your electronic contact personal contact.
Well, I think that what we have envisioned, once we get that, is to actually make it a requirement that they submit an email address.
Okay.
Because that's how they will then file everything. We won't even really be utilizing the postage anymore at that point, because that's how they'll file their appeals. That's how they will submit additional documents, pleadings. So at that point, we definitely would have an email address for them.
All
'Cause that's
right.
the only mechanism that would be available to them.
So we may need a small piece of legislation that would stipulate that to communicate with you.
That would
That would
probably,
help.
yes, that would probably be very helpful once we are able to have that system in place, to have some sort of legislation that requires
All right.
all of these different things.
All right. Well, thank you for that. And looking at your, let's see. Looking at your source of fund table, in your response to our questions, it said that in FY '24, your personnel services programming was spent on the adjudication process primarily and the executive administration. So that's primarily personnel, executive administration, I would assume, and the adjudication process, 971,000.4.
I'm going to defer to
Okay, all right.
the agency fiscal officer to.
Which
speak to that.
report are you referring
I'm
to?
looking at the FY '24 source of fund table, the adjudication process, $971,438. And then the executive administration is $758,526. Are those representative primarily FTEs or some other?
Yes, yes.
Those are FTEs.
FTEs.
Okay. And then mediation, is that also FTE 42,000?
No, that's typically contractual expenses.
Contractual. What kind of contractual expenses? The use of a meeting room, rent, or what would be in mediation? 92,000.
There is half an FTE that's
1/2.
allocated to mediation.
Okay. And then for performance and strategic management, it was 402,359. Is that FTE or
Yes,
something
that's
else?
FTEs, predominantly FTEs.
So like program analysts,
Uh,
performance, strategic management, what does that mean?
So that's just the classification of the FTEs. I don't have
Okay, how many
Schedule A.
FTEs fall in that category?
there are two in that
2?
category.
Okay.
Yes.
And a half of one in mediation. Executive administration is how many FTEs?
5.
5. And the adjudication process, that's your, I guess, your attorneys.
Yes,
Okay. And how many FTEs there?
that's 5.5.
And a half. Okay. And when I look at FY '25 source of fund table, mediation is no longer listed under personal service programming. But you told me a half of an FTE was there.
At one time, there was half an FTE. So if you look at the table going back to 23, FY '23, there was a half of a FTE associated with mediation. But starting in FY 24 or in 25, that FTE was removed.
Okay,
So there's no funding. For
okay, so
mediation.
going forward, mediation resources would be spent contractual on,
Well, actually for 26, there's none allocated
okay,
for mediation.
all right.
I just want to clarify, we don't contract out mediation services. All of our judges, and general counsel staff, and myself included, we're all certified mediators. I don't mediate any cases, but, everyone else that is certified, they are, called upon from time to time to mediate cases. So to mediate appeals, so we don't contract out, any mediation services.
All right.
The only contracts we actually engage in, well, primary contract we engage in is court reporting services. That's our biggest contract.
Okay, court reporting. So can you elaborate on whether a new IT position was added in FY 25? Did you?
A new IT position?
Mhm.
No, in FY 25, this current fiscal year, no, we did not add a new IT position. We hired a paralegal in FY 25 back in November. She joined us.
So when you get your new system, your electronic filing system, will you need an IT person?
Well, I suspect that the person that we're looking to hire, the senior administrative assistant person, would be really involved in working with that system. Perhaps my chief operating officer could elaborate more fully on that.
Now you're on.
Good morning, Ms. Mons. Yes, the idea is to have the senior administrative assistant to have that person manage the database on a daily basis. And so that would be primarily that person's job. About 80% in terms of the job description to provide support to the agency in the regards of managing the case management database system.
Okay. Your office is located at 955 L'Enfant Plaza.
Yes,
Is that a lease space?
yes,
Or is it, okay,
It's a
you have a
lease space.
lease
yes.
and your lease money goes to, um, do you pay lease money?
Yes,
Okay,
I
to
think it's
DGS.
through, yes, DGS,
Yeah.
yes.
Can you tell me what your lease amount is?
I don't know that off the top of my head.
I don't know that either. The DGS handles that. There's a whole team
Okay.
that handles the
So it doesn't come out of your operating
operating
budget?
budget. No, it's
No.
not
It comes out
included.
of the capital budget somewhere.
Correct.
Okay, so I'll look for it there. I'm asking because we have something called the energy and building rentals, and it totals 11,000 under the appeals program description.
Energy,
Yeah, 11,000. It's attachment 4 from FY 24.
oh, energy, communications and building rentals.
Yeah, that would be telephones.
So that's what that is,
Yes.
only telecom,
Only-
okay.
Only telecom.
And building rentals.
That's handled separately.
Okay,
It's- The
so
title
this
is
11,000
encompassing, but it could just say, it should just say telecom.
okay, it's your, okay, all right. Right. Court reporting services are imperative for your agency's hearings and board meetings. And you allocated 45,000 for FY 25. And you have spent almost 13,000 on 9 proceedings. Is this going to last you the duration, or have all of your hearings slowed down because we're going into summer?
I'm going to ask the CEO
Okay.
to speak to that, please.
All right.
As of today, Ms. Bonds, the year-to-date figure in terms of expenditure, it's about $30,000 from that $45,000 that we've allocated for this fiscal year. So we have a balance of about $15,000. We have scheduled evidentiary hearing and court reporting service thus far that will totally eat up the $15,000 that we've had in balance in there thus far. So we projected by the end of the fiscal year, the entire $45,000 that's allocated to this budget line to be fully utilized.
All right.
A lot of
So
our,
there are no restrictions on you spending the balance as of your contractual dollars.
no, we
Okay.
don't have any.
All right.
We were given a waiver for that.
Okay, all right, so you have your waiver.
Yes.
You use the Neil Gross court reporting firm.
Yes.
Okay. Can you confirm that can you confirm that this firm provides the most cost-effective service? And are you aware as to whether or not this firm was selected through a competitive bid process?
I will ask CEO
Okay.
to speak to that.
Yes, ma'am. So every year, before the starting of the fiscal year, we normally work with OCP to go to a competitive process. And so thus far over the years, we've been working with Neil Gross for about 15 to 20 years thus far. And to the competitive process, they are the best in terms of cost-wise and quality of service providing to the agency thus far.
And you've used this particular company for 15 years?
I've been with the agency about 4 years, and so I've inherited them. And so we've really built on a relationship over the years. And so I would say both on the cost side and in terms of the service they provided, they're very efficient, very timely. And so, we have no issue over the years. At least I've been there with them. Just wanted to
I appreciate that. And normally I would say that if it's ain't broke, don't try to fix it. However, we note that throughout the government, there are a number of vendors that have been on board with our government for decades. And so just want to make sure that we're giving any new firms an opportunity. So, and I don't know this firm, have no dog in the fight, so to speak.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering. And we wanted to make sure that we asked the question of you,
Yes.
please.
I appreciate that. We have built up a relationship with them. They have been, we have utilized them for a very long time. So
All
we
right.
have been pleased with their work.
If your agency were to implement the full electronic filing system, would you enter into an MOU with Octo to manage and update the system, or would this be just an independent entity that you work with?
Well, yes, Octo would be the ones who would actually upgrade the current
Okay.
system to provide the full electronic filing.
Okay,
And then after that, I believe that our MOU that we have with them may have to be revised or amended to include maintenance for
Okay.
this new system that we would get. Yes,
All
but
right.
we would actually, I guess, be the ones who would, we would be using it on a daily basis, but they would be the ones to provide the maintenance for it.
All right. So currently your case track application, the expenditure is about 16,000 a year. So we would have to add to this maintenance piece if we were to get it in FY 26. Unlikely that it would be moving that fast, but
True.
if
I
it
would
were,
imagine something would have to be, we haven't gotten to that discussion yet because we
Yes.
don't have the system yet. But I would imagine there would probably be an additional cost involved in maintaining that elaborate system.
I appreciate that. You know, in 2016,
Mhm.
2017, I began the process of trying to get a database of rental housing in the District of Columbia.
Mhm.
I remember 16, 17. It's coming online in 2026. I'm not trying to frighten you or anything.
I
and say,
understand,
but
yeah.
I mean, it just, the wheels
It
of
takes
our
time
bureaucracy just
I
never die.
understand. Well, that's why I continue to bring it up every time to keep it at the forefront of the committee's consideration,
Yes,
because
yes.
it's something that we
Ye-
truly would like to have
Yeah.
when all the pieces come together.
Okay. So, um, if you could just do just a little investigation to see what a maintenance
Oh, absolutely, yes.
might cost,
Yes,
okay?
because we would, yes.
So
we
that
would need to
if
know.
we are lucky and can assist you, because you've been somewhat neglected over the last couple of years, we have not been as, as focused on making sure that you had additional opportunities.
Yes,
So if we can come up with something, let me know.
I certainly will. Thank you. Yes.
All right,
We will
sure.
definitely bring that cost to you.
In FY 25, you also contract with a group called TPW Consultants LLC. It's a small amount of $2,627. This is outside consulting. What were the issues?
Oh,
Thank you for that question, Ms. Bonds. So that is an annual recurring charges that we have to support our printer, copier. As you know, the office engage in very high volume of printing and copying. And so that contract is to provide maintenance services to ensure that the printer and the copiers are optimum on functioning at full capacity.
Okay. So, you own these pieces of equipment.
yes.
Okay,
Yes,
all
ma'am.
right,
we do.
okay. I know sometimes organizations rent the equipment
Yes.
and so I wanted to make sure
I
that,
think we used to years ago rent them, but now we've decided that it's more cost efficient for us to own the equipment and just have a maintenance contract.
yes.
So that's what we've
okay,
done.
Thank you. I believe you indicated that you're trying to fill your senior administrative assistant position.
Yes.
Do you anticipate that happening by the end of fiscal year 25 or?
We in fact had engaged the services of DCHR to reclassify the position, upgrade it and everything. And then we were met with the mayor's order of the hiring freeze. And so that's where we are right now. We've paused it, while we're operating under the hiring freeze and are hopeful that, come October 1st, the start of the new fiscal year, 2026, that we will be able to take that back up, and begin the recruitment at that point.
Are you seeing currently a increase in the number of cases from what you saw in FY 24?
No, I don't think, I don't have those figures before me right now, but I think we're probably remaining pretty steady in the number of appeals that are being filed. What we are seeing, however, is that the appeals are more complex. The issues are more complex. The hearings are where they used to be just one day or maybe half a day. The hearings are now extending 2 or 3 days. So that increases the court reporting costs. So that's what we're seeing now is the trend. But a number of appeals is pretty much remaining steady.
And when you talk about the complexity of the appeals, are you seeing appeals in one particular area or one type more than others?
Well, I would say, by and large, all of our adverse action appeals, because they are factual disputes, require an evidentiary hearing. Most of them do. And I think that some of the employees are now being represented. They're like, I don't know if they're going to legal aid, some of them, but some of them have resources to actually hire like a private attorney. And so they are raising pretty much every issue that can be raised. And that is requiring more witnesses, more testimony, just more diving into that issue than it has been in the past. I think people are just becoming more litigious, probably. Because a person's job is at stake. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it only makes sense that they would explore every possible thing that that could be raised. And then, the agencies are pushing back. They have their own issues as well with the employees. And so, it's just becoming more complex as a result.
More complex and jobs become more precious.
Yes, absolutely.
And as
Absolutely.
a result, yes.
Yeah.
Defense is moving forward.
Yes. Yes.
And so your office is really humming every day, every minute.
Yeah. Yeah. I
That's
mean,
going on.
it's like you said, it's jobs are precious.
Mhm.
And so if there's an opportunity to litigate your case more vigorously, that's what the parties are doing.
Do you see a need for an additional attorney to assist?
I feel like we might. I know that coming up, I'll just tell you now, one of our more senior, well, actually the most senior administrative judge, our part-time judge, she's retiring as of June the 13th, I think. Yes, she's retiring as of June the 13th. And that will be a major loss for us. And so, I'm right now trying to strategize, due to our budget constraints and everything. How are we going to address this? What are we going to do? Will we need to maybe hire an actual full-time administrative judge to take that up, because I don't envision somebody wanting to come and work just part-time, really and truly. So, it's all part of, well, how much funding can we have to make this a full-time position? So it's all of those sorts of things that have to be considered.
So to replace this individual, who apparently is part-time,
Yes, she's part-time, yes.
all right, you would need, what you perceive to need is a supplemental package of resources so that you could make it a full-time position.
That's what I would like to do, is turn it into a full-time position, because like I said, I just can't foresee somebody wanting to really come and work part-time in that. She's been with the agency for a very long time, and so she was happy with part-time work. She's been actually with the DC government for an extended period of time. So she was pleased to have it as a part-time position. It suited her schedule, her life, and everything. And so she's now at the point where she's ready to retire after, I'd say, well over 30 years with the
Mhm.
government. But I don't really foresee in this day and age of somebody wanting to come and work part-time, unless they're like at the end of their career or something. I don't know. I can't see that. So I'm trying to strategize right now to how we will address this and refill the position, because it will have to be refilled. I can't leave it vacant, administrative judge position vacant. So that will have to be refilled.
So have you thought about talking to some of your counterparts in other parts of the government and doing, we'll call it a land grab, but a steal?
Well, the position will be advertised, so it may be.
All right. Noting that your mission is to adjudicate appeals filed by the district, has your agency used any expenditures on public outreach or training to educate government employees about your services?
We have not had like a dedicated, formalized, I guess, outreach program for a while. There have been times in the past where I remember in particular, an attorney at UDC wanted to know, like, really, I think she was probably new. I think it was that the general counsel there was new at that time. And she wanted to bring the general counsel over to just talk and chat to see how the process works, how they go about, not necessarily defending an appeal or nothing like that, just strictly just procedural, how the process works, just procedurally, because we don't want to get into an area where we are viewed as biased or not fair. And then, people wouldn't have confidence in our decisions and our ability to render impartial decisions. So we don't want to stray into a path of essentially training anybody on how to litigate their case before OEA. We don't want to tell employees, attorneys how to do that, and we don't want to tell government agency attorneys how to do that. But what we can do is just simply say, once an appeal is filed, this is the next thing that OEA does with it. And then this is the next thing that the agency does with it. And, then the judge takes it over and the judge then works to adjudicate the case. We have done that. But as far as like training people on how to litigate their cases, no, we cannot do that.
You have indicated that you're going to roll out a quarterly newsletter to inform and highlight your achievements. Um, can you discuss the intended audience for the newsletter and what kind of information we can expect to see in this
Yes,
volume?
we've been working on that. And we're hopeful to we were hoping to have it done, the first issuance of it actually done, in March, but, we haven't done it yet. So what it really is intended to do is just essentially inform the public without having to go through, clicking on this site or that site or looking in this information or that information, as to essentially like how many appeals have been filed at OEA, how many decisions have been issued, just sort of like highlighting, yes, highlighting the outcome of those decisions, just sort of like making it a one-stop shop of where you can find all things essentially pertaining to OEA, instead of having to look on different sites or even on our site to click on different tabs to find information. It would all be contained, self-contained within that one particular spot. And I believe it would be for an audience really of anybody and everybody that clicks on OEA's website. That is our goal.
So then you would focus on widely distributing it within our government.
Yes.
To all those email addresses that we have.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
And you would be able to report on number of new cases, number that are in progress, number that are,
yes.
completed, do an aggregate of the types of
Yes.
cases that we have and the time frame that it takes to
Absolutely.
go through the adjudication process.
Yes.
That
would
that
be-
would be very helpful,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it would be. I think it
Yeah.
would just, like inform everyone that we are
Yeah.
here, this is what we do, we're available.
That's
And
right.
and this is our, how we go about doing what we do.
Yes. Another exciting opportunity for our employees to
I-
learn more about all of what our government is
Absolutely,
and should be.
absolutely.
Okay. So you missed March, so are we thinking now September?
Well, I'm thinking, I'll tell you, the paralegal that was helping me, that was actually spearheading it with me, is no longer with the agency. So that has sort of halted that right now. So I'm now taking it up, where she left off. And so I'm moving forward to finish it up and get it together. But my goal really is to have it, before the end of the fiscal year. So it would be, instead of, well, this first one would actually encompass all quarters, all 4 quarters. And then from there, make it quarterly thereafter.
Well, thank you, Director Barfield, and now we will, and thank you to her entire team for being with us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Bonds. I appreciate all that you do for OEA and your willingness to consider all of our requests. I appreciate that from you and the committee and your staff as well.
We are considering your request, even if it's a half of a
Yes.
FTE.
I-
Sounds like you might need that.
Yes, thank you.
Yes,
Good.
it does. Thank you very much. No promises, of course,
Oh, no.
you know.
No,
I don't know
nobody
what
can
will
make
happen
promises.
when we
You're
go
right.
To these,
Yes, but we appreciate your
but
consideration.
definitely know that you have been without for a number of years.
Yes,
So
thank you.
thank you very much for your service. Thank you. Now we will hear from the Public Employee Relations Board. It is also an impartial, quasi-judicial, independent agency that resolves labor management disputes between agencies of the district government and labor organizations representing agency employees. The board consists of 5 members, which are appointed by the mayor and with the advice and consent of the council. The mayor's proposed FY 26 budget for the Public Employee Relations Board is $1.4 million, and this is a slight decrease from the FY 25 approved budget and has no FTE changes, which total 8 FTEs. And now we will hear from our government witness, the Executive Director, Sims, and I will swear you in and pull again. Okay. Do you swear and affirm that your testimony and any statements that you make before us today to be complete and truthful?
I do.
Thank you. And you can begin when you're ready.
Good morning, Chairperson Bonds and members of the committee. I am Royale Sims, the Director of the Public Employee Relations Board. Joining me today is Agency Fiscal Officer Paul Blake. I am pleased to testify about the proposed fiscal year 2026 budget. The Public Employee Relations Board is an impartial, quasi-judicial, independent agency empowered with the exclusive jurisdiction to resolve labor management disputes between agencies of the district government, district employees, and labor organizations representing employees of the district agencies. Perb's objectives are to resolve cases efficiently, to provide stable relations in district agencies, assist parties to reach mutual agreement on resolutions of labor disputes, promoting harmony between unions and district agencies, and to provide training sessions and resources that promote better understanding and knowledge of labor relations and various responsibilities of the district government managers and union representatives. In FY 25, the council approved a budget of $1,420,948. This funding provided $1,141,000 for personnel services, including salary and fringe benefits of 8 full-time regular employees. I'm pleased to confirm that the supervisory attorney position is now filled, and Perb plans to recruit for the current vacancy of an attorney advisor once the hiring freeze is lifted. In FY 25, the remaining $280,000 was dedicated to non-personnel services. These funds authorized Perb to hold training sessions, hearings, and mediations, and defend its decisions before judicial bodies in the District of Columbia. Perb has expanded the number of contractors available to serve as hearing examiners and mediators. A robust list of neutrals has allowed Perb to increase efficiency and responsiveness by providing hearings in both virtual and in-person formats and reducing time to schedule mediations and hearings. The proposed FY 26 budget for Perb is $1,403,566. Approximately $1,130,000 of that proposed budget is allocated to personnel services. The remaining $274,000 is allocated to non-personnel services. The proposed budget includes a reduction in personnel services of approximately $11,000. A portion of this reduction is the result of a mistaken reclassification that converts the executive director position to an FTE term position with a reduction in salary and benefits. We request the committee support to reclassify the position from a term to a regular position and to approve an additional $8,396.59 to accurately reflect current salary and benefits. The non-personnel services of the proposed FY 26 budget includes a reduction of approximately $6,000 for contractual services. This represents a 2.1% cut to non-personnel services. Thank you, Chairperson Bonds, for your commitment and your support of an effective labor relations system in the District of Columbia. Approximately 70% of the district's workforce is covered by a collective bargaining agreement. The resources allocated to Perb are critical to ensuring that parties engage in good faith collective bargaining and that employees have full freedom to exercise their rights. You and your staff are engaging and very knowledgeable about labor concerns. I look forward to the dialogue today. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before this committee.
Thank you very much for your testimony. I want to go right to this mistake, the reclassification that converted the executive director position to a term position. How did this happen?
So it's my understanding that in the budget formulation process, it occurred in September of last year, 2024, October 2024. And the executive director position was not filled at that time. And so in creating the vacancy to fill a position, there was a mistake made where the position was basically a placeholder position was created while I was serving in the acting capacity. So in filling the vacancy, this mistake happened, and in the budget formulation process, it was an oversight not to correct.
All right. And so, but a term position is different from a regular position. So how did that happen?
It was really in the creation of the vacancy. So to fill the vacancy, this term position was created, and it should have been converted back into a regular position. And so it was an oversight, and that's all I
Okay.
have.
So, Mr. Blake, may I ask you, is this position, the executive director position, always been a regular position, or was it a term position?
It had previously been a regular position.
And any conversation with you was had about moving it to a term position?
No, it was, as Director Sims said, it was done during the formulation.
Just the pen and the paper did it.
Well, I don't know about that, but it was reclassified. So there were, as Director Sims said, there were two positions. He was in acting role, and then there was also another executive director role. And I
Gotcha.
think somewhere in the
Right.
transition that occurred.
Yeah, okay.
And so we've identified it now. And
And
Uh,
you've identified to the penny for accuracy?
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. We will work to get that
Thank you.
changed, most definitely. Thank you very much. Um, Now, your board is comprised of 5 positions. And currently the chair's term expired in December of 2024 and had a holdover period that carries that position, what, until April of 2025?
No, I believe the term expires June 13th of 2025. So,
In June?
yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So how many active board members do you have?
Once the holdover period expires, we will have 3 active board members.
Okay. Is it important that we fill this position?
I think very important. We will have a quorum. Three members constitute a quorum for the board, but that's a bare quorum, and any absence will prevent the board from completing this work. We want to ensure that we do not have a backlog in our cases.
So you have also another vacancy.
Yes, we have one vacancy now for a public member, and then and the chair is also a public member by statute. And so we will have vacancy in that position also.
And that's the position that would expire on June 13th,
I-
2025.
I believe June 13th. It could be the 12th, 13th. I don't.
Okay, but June of, instead of April.
Yes.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Are your board members paid a meeting fee?
Yes.
And does your budget currently have a meeting fee for 5-member board or for 3-member board?
It's for 5-member.
Okay. All the meeting dates are
But we,
accruing the amount of the meeting fees that you have to, so you have a complete budget, in other words, for your board members.
yeah, for a full board for 1 year meeting monthly.
Okay.
That's what we budget for.
Your new office is located at 899 North Capitol Street, Northeast. This is district leased, is that correct?
Yes, it's leased through DGS.
All right. And so, again, Mr. Blake,
It's not part of the operating budget.
okay, all right. During the performance oversight season, you said the agency shared that on an average, it takes the agency about 138 days from filing to issuing a decision for arbitration review requests, 150 days for unfair labor practice complaints, and 357 days for an election. Are there any associated costs to the district taking this amount of time to issue decisions on any particular matter?
I don't think there's a cost associated with the time, but those cases do have associated costs, like our unfair labor practice cases have associated costs for our hearing examiners. There are no additional associated costs with our with our arbitration review request or our elections. We manage those in-house.
Okay. So with the hearing examiners, that's an outside contractual
Yes.
source. Okay. And what is that amount allocated for 26?
Do you want it just for the particular contractor who handles the,
Yes, the unfair labor practice complaints. Who is your hearing examiner? Is that also like a company, or is it individual contractors?
Individual contractors.
It is.
yes,
And what is that amount that you've allocated for 26? Or do you have it broken down so that you could,
we have it, it's broken down by category. And
Okay.
so, if you look at table 3 in other services and charges, there's $54,000. And so the hearing examiners are paid out of that amount.
all right. So the bulk of your resources, the amounts that are allocated to the $1.4 million is contractual. Aside from the administrative
The,
fees?
the bulk of PERB's resources are to personnel services. So for our FTEs, approximately 80% of our budget is spent on salary and fringe benefits.
All right.
Uh,
So the bulk is for your 8 full-time regular.
yes.
Okay, and it does not include that 8,000 that's missing for the executive director.
That's right.
Or does it, or
It
is it
does
the
not
whole
include-
salary?
It does not include that 8,000.
Okay.
That's the request
Okay,
to make,
all right, but it
convert that
includes,
position and to make it whole.
okay, but it includes whatever the difference is.
Right.
It's already in the budget. Okay,
Yes.
just want to make sure. All right. So you're saying in table 3, I can find the unfair labor practice information, hearing examiners, the $54,000? Or is that hearing examiners for all of what you do?
So the $54,000, that encompasses our hearing examiners and our mediators.
And mediators. And your mediators are used when? During the
We-
elections, during the unfair labor practice complaints, or the arbitration review requests?
We refer most of those cases to mediation. So our unfair labor, I'm sorry, we refer most cases to mediation. Unfair
Okay,
labor
mediation
practices-
first and then, gotcha.
Yes.
All right, so of this 54,000, is most of it for mediation or for hearing examiners? I'm trying to see how much is spent on hearing, how much is spent on mediation.
So it depends on the particular year. For example, this year we've had 28 mediation sessions. We've had 26 hearing sessions. So, and we've spent about $53,000 on hearings and mediations. It's almost evenly split amongst the two. That can change depending on the caseload. So we may have more hearings one year than mediations. But, you know, in most cases we'll see a mediator. Not every case will see a hearing.
And so you use individuals as opposed to a company.
Yes.
Okay. So when I talk to the CFO, they'll have to really go through a lot of names as opposed to a company.
We have about, we've been expanding the list. We have about 20 or so neutrals that we use to perform both hearings and mediations.
And what is is the allocation done by hour or is it done by day, or how is this resource dispersed?
It's a day rate.
Day rate.
Yes, the-
Okay. So I have to ask, since you use them so much, I think I know the answer, but I have to ask anyway. Why have you not hired employees to do this, either part-time or?
I think the contractor model allows us to really support the efficiency of agency operations, really speed, flexibility, and cost savings.
Thank you. So are there any additional costs associated with these arrangements that you have with mediators, hearing examiners? Or is it just their fee?
Ju-
Just
Just
their
their
fee?
fee. During the hearing, we also have court transcription service, Neil Gross. Um, Those are the fees associated with the hearing.
Oh, okay, so that, okay. Well, thank you, Director Sims, and we appreciate you and Mr. Blake. Thank you for staying on with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we will move to DC Department of Human Resources, commonly referred to DCHR. The Director Hall and his team. The DC Department of Human Resources provides human resource management services that strengthen individual and organizational performance and enables the district government to attract, develop, and retain a well-qualified and diverse workforce. It is organized into 6 administrations. All report to the Office of the Director. Each plays an important role and functions over the overall district government workforce. And so I will now turn to Director Hall and his staff, and I'll swear you in. If you would raise your right hand. Do you swear and affirm your testimony and any statement that you make before us today to be truthful and complete?
Yes.
Thank you. You can begin when you're ready.
Thank you. Hello, Chairperson Bonds, members of the Committee on Executive Administration, and Labor and Committee staff. My name is Charles Hall Jr., and I have the privilege of serving as the Director of the DC Department of Human Resources, or DCHR. I want to thank you for the opportunity to testify on behalf of Mayor Bowser's proposed fiscal year 2026 budget and financial plan for DCHR. The mayor's fiscal year 2026 proposed budget and fiscal plan, Grow DC, allocates $20,876,005 to DCHR. The appropriated funding thoughtfully balances citywide priorities and still enables DCHR to fulfill its critical mission to ensure we have a highly talented and engaged workforce that serves DC residents. Our vision is simple: to provide human resource policies and practices that create a culture of innovation and inclusivity where each employee feels valued, motivated, and empowered. As such, DCHR will continue to attract, develop, and retain top talent to ensure our workforce remains strong and committed to serving our residents. We look forward to FY26, and we would like to take this opportunity to illustrate our accomplishments thus far in FY25. DCHR recognizes that empowering employees to make informed decisions about their financial future is a key employer responsibility. In FY25, with support from various partners, we increased opportunities for employees to learn about navigating life decisions such as retirement, healthcare, and financial wellness. We also reintroduced our Ready for Retirement series, comprised of comprehensive monthly sessions tailored specifically for district employees who plan to retire from either the 401A defined contribution plan or the Civil Service Retirement System plan. These sessions provide expert guidance on eligibility criteria, continuation of benefits, Social Security, Medicare, CSRS annuities, and the retirement application process. Approximately 400 employees participated in these monthly and agency-specific sessions, which received positive feedback. DCHR will continue to offer monthly sessions for the remainder of FY25 and into FY26. Employees can register for these sessions in PeopleSoft. In support of employee wellness, DCHR expanded programming focusing on both physical and financial health. In April, nearly 880 employees attended at least one of DCHR's 9 biometric screening events. The screenings allowed employees to assess key health indicators such as cholesterol, blood glucose, blood pressure, and body composition. These events promoted wellness by helping participants understand their biometric numbers and take proactive steps towards improving and maintaining their health. In addition to screenings, we also offered numerous wellness activities to support overall well-being, such as the Spring into Motion Challenge, which has made a huge impact on employee health and well-being. Over 1,060 of our district employees from all agencies came together for 4 weeks of movement, motivation, education, and fun. Teams and individual participants could connect with one another on the Challenges social wall, try new healthy recipes, learn the science of wellness through articles, engage with the DC Food Policy Council's Sustainability Side Quest, and earn incentives, all while taking positive steps towards their health goals. In partnership with the Department of Insurance, Securities and Banking, or DISB, DCHR hosted several financial literacy and wellness webinars. Recent topics include investing, protecting assets with insurance, and tax preparation. Employees can access the financial webinars in real time and watch replays on demand. DCHR will continue to explore innovative programs that focus on increasing employee well-being in FY26. To cultivate a culture of continuous learning and growth, DCHR offers a wealth of training opportunities for employees. Thus far in FY25, DCHR has provided in-person instructor-led and virtual training courses on topics such as effective business writing, speaking under public pressure, project management essentials, business acumen, giving and receiving feedback, and innovative thinking. DCHR also collaborated with internal and district-wide partners to provide training opportunities for skills that are in high demand in district government, such as grant management and our HRIS system, PeopleSoft, as well as district budgeting. We also hosted employee peer coaching sessions, which provide employees and managers opportunities to gain insight about work-related challenges and concerns. These sessions help build an environment of mutual trust and understanding and let employees support and learn from each other. In FY26, DCHR will provide courses such as project management, resilience, and leadership development to help meet high employee demand for these topics. To attract top talent, especially district residents, DCHR continued to host and support hiring events and targeted outreach. In March, we partnered with the Department of Employment Services to host the Gateway to District Careers hiring event, which brought together 70 district agency partners and private sector organizations. The event attracted over 450 attendees and resulted in 91 job offers made by district agencies. The event also featured professional development workshops and free professional headshots. We also developed and featured a pre-event employment hub that highlighted open district government positions so applicants could better prepare. We also are excited to partner with Work for America, a nonprofit organization that provides support and resources to local governments to recruit the next generation of public servants. Through this partnership, DCHR can market upcoming hiring events and district positions on Work for America's website and access a broader pool of qualified and dedicated candidates. Reaching our audience requires effective communication. To increase employee and resident awareness of district opportunities in FY25, we've expanded our outreach strategy using monthly email newsletters with videos, social media campaigns highlighting our events and what to expect, and text alerts. These tools deliver timely, relevant information, and we offer multiple options so current and prospective employees can choose the method that best works for them. In FY25, we will continue refining our outreach efforts to increase engagement with both employees and job seekers, and to provide information on our programs and hiring opportunities. Although FY '25 requires thoughtful fiscal measures, the mayor's proposed budget firmly supports DCHR's vision to provide human resource policies and practices that create a culture of innovation and inclusivity where each employee feels valued, motivated, and empowered. DCHR is committed to help grow DC through advancing employment and training opportunities. In closing, I take great honor being a steward of the resources allocated to the DC Department of Human Resources. I thank Mayor Bowser for the opportunity and privilege to serve, and I look forward to our continued work together to achieve our shared goals to serve our employees, residents, and visitors. This concludes my testimony, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much for your testimony. I just wanted to start by taking a look a little bit at some of what you shared with us in your testimony. You mentioned skills that are in the high demand in the district government, grants management, human resources information system, PeopleSoft, as I guess we commonly know it as, and district budgeting, or I guess the financial officers and those that do budgets. Do you have a breakdown of the number of employees we have in those categories today?
I do not have that with me, but we can get that information.
Would you
to
please
And you're specifically inquiring about the persons who
fall in these categories that do grants
that attended
management?
the training?
No, just throughout our government, out of our 37,000 employees, how
Got it.
many do we have in those categories?
Okay.
And where are they located? That is, what agencies have the lion's share, let's say, the highest number, and what
Got it.
agencies have the smallest number?
Okay.
Trying to understand what our workforce really does look like.
Understood.
You may recall, last year, I was trying to get us to talk a little bit about classification
Mhm.
and how it worked. And so you've given us some categories that you obviously track, feel strongly about. So I'm going to use your categories and see if we can finally get some information. You heard my conversation with Ms. Barfield earlier, maybe some of your staff, about how I put in place a database in 2017, 2018, and guess what? It finally is coming online here in 2026, 2025. So I'm like, just trying really hard to understand how we collect our data and what does the data really mean, since we have so many data collection arms in
Okay.
our government. So I would appreciate that. You also mentioned that you have you collaborate with internal and district-wide partners to provide the training. When you say internal and district-wide, internal to me is our government,
Mhm.
the district government. District-wide are private sector. Is that how you're using that term, district-wide?
So one of the things that we have been able to do, such as with our partnership with DISB, we've been able to partnership with them when it comes to understanding financial wellness. There are times when we partner with other agencies within the government. There's a training, for example, with the mayor's office on LGBTQ rights. There's a training that we partnered with them. So, we got the information out to employees. They set up the training. They're the ones that run the training, but we're the ones that were able to push that information out to the employees.
So this does not mean, when you say district-wide, this is keeping it still within our government. It's not taking it to the private sector. That's what I'm trying to understand.
Right. So there are some, like we partner with George Washington. You know, there are some outside vendors that we do use for our trainings, but we try to stick within the government. Of course, we have a team at DCHR that does trainings, and so it is a mixture of persons who will
Okay.
facilitate trainings.
Would you also provide me with a list of your outside partnerships, outside of the government partnerships over FY '24 and '25,
Okay,
please, for these, specific trainings that you do?
sure.
Thank you. We're on a very fast timeline these days, so next Monday, we only have 2 weeks to do all of our hearings, where in the past we had 4 weeks. So we've just got a really abbreviated time frame.
Okay.
Thank you very much. You mentioned in FY '26, you're going to provide courses in project management, resilience, and leadership development to meet high employee demands so you're telling me still about what happens inside our government, the different agency, they made this request.
Yes, so employees have made requests to have the courses that relate to project management for resilience. Of course, what does it mean to continue to flourish in the work environment under all the stress and strains that we have, not just at work, but in society at large? And of course, we know that there is a benefit to the entire government the more that we provide training to our managers and supervisors.
Okay. And so resilience does not necessarily speak to upward mobility. Usually employee saying I'm resilient means that I've been here, I started at this level and now I'm at that level or that level.
I think that that is one of the outcomes of resilience, but also being able to flourish where you are is also an indicator of being able to be
You don't want to
resilient.
flourish where you are for 10, 15 years.
Well, you may love what you do and may not want to go into
Director
another
Hall.
position. So,
This is America.
yes.
All right. Hear you. Okay. Oh, goodness. Also, you mentioned in recruitment, you said the event attracted 450 attendees. And this was something you did with 70 district agency partners and private sector organizations.
Yes, ma'am.
Again, I'd like to know the private sector organizations that participated in this. I think you were helping to recruit
That's
former federal employees.
yes, ma'am.
All right. And again, you're going to tell us if you could indicate the agencies that these former federal employees landed on.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay. I would say that not everyone who attended was a federal government employee, but we can still say if they attended the fair where persons
All right.
would have been hired
Okay.
for government agencies, not for private sector. We would not have that information.
That's fine. But you would also be able to tell me of those the 91, how many were federal of the 91?
If they provide us with that information, we
Yeah.
would be. Yes.
Yeah,
ma'am.
sure.
Yes.
I don't want to know their classification, and I just trying to get a picture of what's going on in the marketplace
Got
more than anything else.
Sure.
And to that, you mentioned you have some tools in FY '26. You want to continue refining your outreach efforts, increase engagement with both employees and job seekers. and to provide information on programs and hiring opportunities. I question that. Now that we have the freeze, are we anticipating that the freeze will be um, relaxed or relieved or end on October 1, 2025?
We will take direction from the mayor. And so when she informs us that it's been lifted, that's when we will move forward. But
Okay.
until then, we are following the hiring freeze.
All right, and until then, you have a plan in place in the event so that you can go forward.
That's correct.
As it relates to DC resident hiring, are there any agencies where you can identify where more than half of their employees are DC residents?
Um, Off the top of my head, no. Is that information that I brought with me? That is not. I think that it would depend on a couple of things. Number one, the information provided to us when persons were hired. Residency preference, if they decided to select that. And then ensuring the persons are updating their address. So someone could have become a DC resident after they were hired. And we'd need to make sure that they had updated their address in order to pull that information. That is not a report that I believe we regularly run. However, we do track DC residency. So we're not tracking it by agency, but we are tracking it for the entire government.
So how do you, if you track it for the entire government, you're saying you track by the pay stub or something like that? Or by the tax,
Yeah, so by the
the
individual's
W-2?
information, the individual's personal information,
Yeah,
not necessarily their
that would be
position
the W-2. I see. So you don't know how many DC employees are employed, let's say, when I say you don't know how many DC residents are employed by DC public schools, as an example.
So as you may know, DC Public Schools is independent from DCHR. So we don't have personnel authority over DC Public Schools. So they have an HR department that they might be able to provide you with that information, but that would not be through DCHR.
And we come back to this junction every time we talk, is where your all right, I hear you. I hear you. So let's take an agency that I believe you have authority over, and that's DPW.
Could we pull that information?
Yes.
We could pull that information. We could do it agency by agency. What I'm saying is that right now, what we do when we look at residency, we're looking at it at a macro level for the entire government.
All
Could we
right.
do by agency? That is something that I believe that we would be able
Okay.
to do.
I'm pretty sure that you track that. It would make all the sense in the
Sure.
world.
Mhm.
And so I am asking for such a report.
Okay. For all agencies under the mayor's
Yes,
authority?
yes.
Okay.
And
by
I will
Monday-
get the independent. You already do it. It's just a computer run.
I will,
Yeah.
I will follow up with staff and see if we
You
can get
know,
that
this,
by
remember,
Monday.
this is the age of, past the Industrial Revolution. and-
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Going into I don't want to call the name of the fleet that goes up, but you know what I mean.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much. You mentioned your community partnership efforts.
Mhm.
And you said, I wanted to know, how do you measure the success of these engagements?
Yeah, so we are really revamping that. We've done one so far. And if we were to measure the success rate of it, I would say that it was moderately successful, and that's because of a couple of things. One, we have many more people register than attend who actually attended. But of those who attended, all of them actually came to the hiring event that occurred after that community conversation. So it was great to see that people came to get the information, felt that they were prepared, and then attended the hiring event. Um, I say moderately successful because at the end of the day, we don't want people just to attend. We want them ultimately to secure a job, whether it's with the district, which we'd love for them to work for the government, or with a private employer. I don't think that the success rate that we were looking for occurred. So that's why we're revamping it, trying to make sure that it gets better. And we welcome partnership with you as well, because I know that we've talked about this a lot. And when we're hiring again, we want to ensure that DC residents have that priority and preference, and are fully
Yes,
prepared.
I appreciate that very much. You know, all of the mayor's literature regarding the new budget cycle FY26 speaks of workforce and jobs,
Mhm.
and naturally jobs for DC residents. As you know, today in the District of Columbia, when we think of all of the enterprises, not government only, but all of the enterprises, about 70% of the workforce does not reside in DC. And so how do we get those numbers up? We would like to think when and if the hiring freeze for DC government is lifted, we can help. I mean, it's right here at our fingertips, but certainly we have to be focused on any new commercial opportunities in our community. We have to focus on DC residents having an opportunity, which of course, in many instances, it means concerns and action as it relates to literacy as well as skills training. And that leads us to apprenticeships, you know, an area that I guess you indirectly get involved in through your internships. But that's where we are focused. This committee is focused. And so what you do with the agencies is very important, particularly as it relates to the hiring of DC residents. Um, and not just for those seasonal, you know, occasional kind of jobs. But my goal is to turn every working resident into a taxpayer. And I think we all feel that way. That's the only thing that we have. You know, I've told you before, we don't raise corn or any of those things. So we're kind of, it's just us
Yes.
that we have to be concerned with. I note that you, for your FY26 key performance indicators, that you have a number of measures like the average number of days to fill vacancy from post to offer acceptance. But you gave us the categories, but you didn't give us any of your projections. So is it possible to get your projections? And certainly you could, if you're using the same performance indicators, you are?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, then we would like to have your information from FY25.
Okay. They are posted online, but we can definitely
Yeah,
include that in the information that we
please.
get to you. Sure.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So now that we're in this hiring freeze, are you going to continue to spend on your recruitment budget? Well, how does that work? Or are you a big waiver and you don't have to worry about spending?
So the hiring freeze is in place, as you know. There is a waiver process, though, for mission critical positions. And so we still need to ensure that we're able to recruit, to post, to hire for those positions. We believe that, and Yared can correct me if I'm wrong, but we believe that we have sufficient funds to continue to recruit using a variety of different methods, not just our hiring events, but LinkedIn, Work for America, college partnerships. Those sorts of things will be very helpful to us as we continue to recruit.
So you just recited that you have about 4 different mediums that you use for recruitment, Lincoln,
Work for America, the partnership that we have, and they specialize in persons who are specifically interested in public service. We also have our hiring events, so LinkedIn, Work for America, hiring events, and then the fourth one that I named that I can't even remember right now. It'll come to me in just a moment.
okay,
But I'm sorry, college and university partnerships.
yes. So my message then has to be to DC public that if you want to work in DC government, you have to be on one of these 3 lists
So you
for
don't have
you to recognize them and for them to
um,
be recognized.
So you don't have to be on a list. If you have a LinkedIn profile, which we, at our March event, sorry, we did help people as it relates to here's how you set up a LinkedIn profile. Here's what you want to have on your profile. So a LinkedIn profile is free. Anyone can set one up. And we can make sure that that information is present so that persons can know how to set it up. When we have our community career conversations, that's one of the things we can talk to people about. As it relates to the hiring fairs, you know that people typically show up to hiring fairs, and we're grateful for the number of people who show up. And we also recognize that, one, the government has limited positions that are available. So even with all the persons who show up, everybody's not going to get a job. But we want to position persons to be the best candidate so that whether it's with the government or with a public employer, they can find employment.
So when you think about the work that you do as it relates to recruitment, do you have any data that you collected that would help us understand whether job fairs yield more connections of individuals to jobs than through these, I'll
LinkedIn.
call them listservs? Have you been keeping track of the processes that you use to inform us?
So we definitely have been keeping track as it relates to hiring fairs. With LinkedIn, or we haven't started fully using Work for America yet, so we don't have any data there. But one of the challenges there is that an employee would have to self-report that they found out about the position through LinkedIn. If not, we wouldn't really have data that has the integrity we might want or desire to have, but we could capture that data if someone does say, I learned about this position from LinkedIn, and then they ultimately get hired.
Okay, so you would give some consideration to asking these listservs to capture that information?
We can look into whether or not LinkedIn is able to do that.
I
I'm
don't
not sure
know if
about-
it is.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
just
not sure
wondering.
either, but
how we
that's
could-
something we can look into for sure. We are trying to figure out what additional ways we can leverage LinkedIn so that it's more beneficial to the district. So that's one of the things we can look into.
And one way we certainly could use is if an individual attends or participates in your recruitment effort, they could certainly indicate, I saw or I read or I heard about it on what are your sources? We can always ask that. Would that require modification to an application that we have or what?
No, ma'am. So it's already a question on the application. It's just whether or not people actually utilize it because it's, again, self-reported. So it's not a mandatory field that they would have to
I see.
use when they apply.
Right. Thank you. I was going to inquire as to whether or not it would cost you anything and whether or not you need it. If it's valuable information, whether or not we should plan for you to have resources to capture that. But since you're, okay. Okay. Can you tell us about the status of your MOUs with your agencies, particularly the DC Health Benefits Exchange? I think it's been zeroed out in the FY 26 budget.
Uh, Good afternoon,
Yes.
Councilmember Pons. That MOU funded 1.5 FTEs for enhanced HR services. And the LOI, which means a letter of intent, was not signed when the budget was submitted. So we don't have an LOI signed by the submission date. It has to be omitted. And the MOU will be processed after October 1st.
Okay, so you will have an amendment? Is that what you are saying?
Not amendment. When budgets are submitted, if LOIs are not submitted with the budget, we cannot include the FTEs in the submission. So the MOU will be, I'm not sure if the MOU is going to be processed in 26. Are we talking about 26, right? FY
Yes.
26?
Mhm.
Yes, that's the reason you don't see that 1.5 FTEs listed in the proposed budget.
All right.
We didn't have an LOI. If we don't have an LOI, we can't include the request.
So would that be an additional dollars that would be spent in this direction?
No, no.
Okay. In FY 24, you spent $45,000 on travel. Thus far in FY 25, 11.7 thousand dollars. And now you budgeted for 55,000 for FY 26. What's the reason for the increase when I thought every agency was seeing a 1.3% decrease?
Yeah, so all of our travel is related to professional development. So it's for the development of our employees in their specific areas. We also send employees throughout the agency. We have a select group of employees. Each year, it's a different group of persons who attend the SHRM conference. And that's to build the capacity, the HR capacity of our staff. And I don't have the exact number with me right now of how many people go, but it's several people who will attend that conference.
And is the number the same number each year that attend? I'm trying to understand why 10,000 more.
Yeah, I can look into the number that we sent last year at FY 24 versus this year. We, of course, have not planned for FY 26, but typically it's the SHRM conference, and there are several our IT team. We've had conferences for learning about AI, making sure that we can be prepared for that change. And so there are very strategic travel conferences that we're attending. And it looks like it's about 10 to 12 each year.
All right. And so for FY 26, what is your budget, your travel budget?
For FY 55,
Yeah. For 25, it was,
Oh, for
I
25.
I don't know what's your 25 budget?
Can you
Wait.
ask that question one more time?
Okay. In 24, you spent 45,000.
Mhm.
In 25, you've already spent 11. And that's based on a what budget? What was the dollar amount of your budget? I know what the 26 is proposed. So
Uh,
what's your 25? You've spent 11,000 of your 25.
the 25.
40.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a $15,000 increase for FY 26. And
That's
you're
correct.
going to send more? Or does the conference cost more? Or is this the conference and other types of trainings?
Yeah, there will be some additional trainings that are involved. Our legal team attends training. There may be updates to employment law, ADA law. There are considerations that we just need to be prepared for,
All right.
that our teams will attend.
All right, could you, since you are at 40 this year, could you let me know in writing by next Monday how you would spend 45,000 as opposed to 55?
Sure. I also would add that we also need to take into account that it's a little bit more expensive to travel now than it probably was 2 years ago. But yes, we can get that information to
Okay.
you.
And probably more dangerous sometimes too, it seems to be, but thank you. You're right, you're right. Did the reduction in FTEs for the Capital City Fellows Administration and the District Leadership Program result in a reduction in the number of slots for the program?
For our summer cohort, but we will still have persons who will continue who are in the program. So they're currently in the program. They will be extended until September.
30th.
Yes.
All right, but not beyond September 30th.
So it's possible they may find a position within the district government, and they'll be full-fledged employees.
Provided that the hiring freeze is
That's correct.
lifted.
Yes, ma'am.
But even with the hiring freeze on now, you're able to continue these individuals?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And we went through the waiver process for that, just so that that's on
Thank
the
you
record.
very much.
Yeah.
That's important. We're all equal here. We have
Yes.
to comply. You indicated that there have been 40 part-time hires in the Board of Elections in FY 25 to date. Are these for the special election in Ward 8, or do you know?
I don't know specifically what their hiring is for. Of course, during an election period, there would be an increase. We would see an
Right.
increase in persons hired. And because they're hired basically seasonally or part-time, there would be that slight increase that you would see during those periods. But
Okay.
as it relates to the Ward 8 election, I don't know if that's a result of the upcoming election.
So in the justification, when they ask for, when they say they're doing part-time hires, the description of what the duties are should specify what they will be doing, right?
It's always helpful to have more information. So if they can provide more information, that would be helpful to informing us as well as you of what the hires are related to.
Okay, you do the recruitment for the
They
Board of
likewise
Elections?
are independent.
Yes, they are,
Yes.
but they work with you. At least they tell me that. So are you telling me that they do not work with you, or?
I will tell you, let me follow up with you. But they are an independent agency. They
I'm
are not
aware of
under the
that.
mayor's
Yeah.
personal authority.
Okay. Well, Director Hall, we thank you very much for your time and your staff today. And we hope to hear from you on, I think, 3 little matters.
Yes, ma'am.
All righty. Thank you so
Thank you.
very much. Now we will hear from the Office of the Inspector General. Um, It is our primary agency tasked with preventing fraud, mismanagement, and abuse of power within the government. It is the only local agency that can investigate all aspects of our government. It is independently, it audits, inspects, and investigates matters pertaining to the district government in order to prevent and detect corruption, mismanagement, waste, fraud, and abuse, and of course, promote economy, efficiency, effectiveness, and accountability. And inform stakeholders about issues related to the district programs and operations, and it can recommend and track the implementation of corrective actions. And we will now hear from Inspector General Daniel Lucas and his team, and I will swear you in. All right, thank you. Do you swear and affirm that the testimony that you make before us today to be truthful and complete?
I do.
Thank you very much, and you can begin when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Bonds and members of the committee. I am Daniel W. Lucas, Inspector General for the District of Columbia. I am pleased to appear before the committee to review the Office of Inspector General budget submission for fiscal year 26. Ms. Jamie Yarusi, Deputy Inspector General for Business Management, joins me today to help answer any questions you may have. The OIG has a unique budget process compared to other district agencies. Specifically, the OIG's enabling legislation states that the OIG shall prepare and submit to the mayor annual estimates of the expenditures and appropriations necessary for the operation of the OIG for the year. These estimates are then forwarded by the mayor to the council without revision, but subject to recommendations, including recommendations on reallocating any funds from the Inspector General's estimates to other items in the district budget. The OIG's budget also benefits from a special purpose revenue fund, the OIG Support Fund. The OIG Support Fund is funded by 25% of criminal restitution and recoupments generated from an OIG criminal investigation and 25% of revenue from recaptured overpayments identified through an OIG audit, inspection, or evaluation. The OIG Support Fund budget estimates anticipated revenues to be deposited into the fund in the forthcoming fiscal year. For FY 2026, we have adjusted our estimate deposits into the support fund. Specifically, while our investigative work has resulted in substantial monetary judgments, the corresponding payment of these judgments has been slow. Despite this, we have and continue to use the OIG Support Fund as a critical tool to fund emergent oversight requirements. OIG FY25 approved budget. The OIG's FY25 approved gross budget is $24 million. Our approved budget includes $1.6 million in budget authority in the OIG Support Fund. Also included is a 2%, that's $295,000 reduction in personnel services funding due to vacancy savings, which is equivalent to 3 full-time equivalent positions, which we agreed to during last year's budget formulation process. Since the approval of the OIG's FY25 budget, we, like the rest of the district government, have contributed our resources to address district-wide budget pressures. First, in March of this year, the OIG worked with the executive and agreed to return $450,000 in PS surplus. Second, the issuance of the City Administrator's Order 2025-1, the OIG voluntarily adopted additional spending restrictions to help the district's overall financial condition. Finally, with Mayor's Order 2025-053, the OIG scrutinized its budget to ensure that we could execute our statutory mission while contributing to the district's shortfall. As a result, we have frozen 14 vacant positions, which is approximately $1.5 million in PS funds. And we reduced our non-personnel service budget by $1.4 million for the remainder of fiscal year 25. That said, and to manage expectations of the district government as well as the public, these reductions will have a direct impact on the number of engagements we can undertake, as well as the time frames to complete our oversight work. Through May of this year, the OIG expended about 62% of our adjusted FY25 budget. To mitigate adverse impacts on our current FY budget, we have diligently evaluated our internal operations to maximize the economic and efficient use of our available resources. In one example, we have conducted a comprehensive review of our information technology and subscription-based services to optimize our technology portfolio and maximize operational efficiency. This effort includes consolidating our investigations unit and our Medicaid fraud control unit case management systems, which will yield enhanced synergies and reduce recurring expenditures. Another example is leveraging procurements to maximize our internal efficiency, such as combining the statutorily required annual comprehensive financial report, or the ACT, for financial audit, and the District of Columbia Housing Authority financial audit into a single procurement. This effort has reduced our internal resources required to award and administer the contract, while still maintaining rigorous oversight of the contractor's performance. During the remainder of FY25, we will seek additional opportunities to maximize the district's investments in the OIG and identify areas where district agencies can improve their programs and operations to be more economic, efficient, and effective. Looking beyond FY25, the OIG's proposed FY26 gross budget is $23.5 million, reflecting a decrease of 2.3% from last year's approved budget. Our proposed budget includes estimated deposits into the OIG support fund totaling $1 million and $3 million in federal grant funds to support our Medicaid fraud control unit. Next year, we anticipate specific budget pressures, including statutorily required engagements, operationalizing internal initiatives, and planning for additional oversight needs in response to federal actions that may impact the district. Statutory required engagements. First, the OIG will award and administer a contract for an independent audit of the district's management and valuation of commercial real property tax assessments. This requirement was born from the fallout of the $48 million tax refund fraud scheme ending in 2007. As mandated, the OIG is responsible for awarding and administering a contract with an independent firm to evaluate OTR's commercial real property assessment process, as well as its organizational structure and human capital management. Ultimately, this engagement's independent and objective assessment seeks to identify any risks to district's taxpayers by identifying and recommending improvements to ensure a robust, transparent, and equitable tax assessment process. The OIG will also engage an outside auditor to conduct our triennial procurement risk assessment. This assessment is an evolution of our statutory requirement to conduct an audit of all procurement activities within the district. Over the years, we have found that a risk assessment provides greater utility to the district, allowing for the proactive identification of procurement-related issues before they materialize and impact the district. The 3-year time frame enables district agencies to mitigate identified risks. The procurement risk assessment also informs our annual audit and inspection plan and our oversight engagements to evaluate the economy, efficiency, and effectiveness of district procurements. internal initiatives. Subject to the availability of resources, we plan to operationalize our body-worn camera program. This requirement was included as part of DC Law 24-289, the Inspector General Enhancement Act of 2022, but was subject to availability of funding. Although this requirement remains unfunded, reallocating currently appropriated resources to this program will benefit the district, the OIG, and our special agents and the public when body-worn cameras are deployed during judicially authorized law enforcement operations. We will continue to invest in tools and training for OIG staff. As we face resource constraints, these investments will seek to improve our productivity and position us to be more agile and innovative as we conduct our oversight work. Finally, the OIG is keenly aware of federal actions that may directly or indirectly affect the district government and the residents we serve. These impacts may create various pressures on individuals and businesses, create or expand opportunities for the exploitation of district programs and operations, and lead to an environment where ineffective stewardship of district resources is tolerated. Collectively, these elements will increase risks to the district. We continue to identify and evaluate these risks and provide incremental oversight as our capacity allows. In conclusion, Chairperson Bonds and members of the committee, the OIG has a critical oversight role for the district. I appreciate the executive support in proposing an FY26 budget that will allow the OIG to continue its work to help ensure district revenues are maximized and expenditures are economical, efficient, and effective. I also appreciate this committee and the council's continuous support of the OIG. As the council deliberates its difficult budget, it is important to remember that the risk of fraud, waste, abuse, and mismanagement increases as resources decreases. As such, we will continue to be judicious in the use of our budgeted resources and focus our work on high-risk programs and operations that encompass the district's $21.8 billion budget. This concludes my testimony, and I welcome the opportunity to answer your questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lucas, and thanks for being here today. You and I know that your function is very necessary. We're very thankful that we have an inspector general in our government. If I were in some parts of the federal government, I couldn't say that today, as we well know. And so we want to make sure that we do what we can to retain you, make sure that you're still here. So with that said, can you tell me more about the body-worn camera program, the budget that you need for that?
Yeah, she's going to pull up the number for me, but in general, why we need a body-worn camera program is that when our agents are out executing either search warrants or arrest warrants or any activity where they're engaging with the public, we want to make sure, you know, that those actions are transparent and they comport, you know, with the applicable standards. Body-worn cameras help us do that by obviously recording the interaction to be reviewed by anyone who needs to see that particular activity. All of our law enforcement partners have body-worn camera programs, and we're just simply following suit with what is a law enforcement standard. And annually, we believe that cost is going to be just over $300,000.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very helpful. And I would imagine that within your collections, you may have you have that resource.
Yes, yeah, we believe we do. And I would, you know, imagine that at some point in the future, we would probably look to have a dedicated line item to support that program.
That's what I'm
Hopefully, when
thinking.
we get out of the budgetary,
Yes.
challenges that we have, we can revisit that.
Okay, thank you. Last year you requested, last year being for the FY 25, you requested 2.6 million additional dollars in non-personnel service. Was this funding received?
No.
Okay. So what is your need for FY 26? I know what the mayor has proposed. Does that address your need?
Um, the, the mayor proposed, what she has proposed is consistent with what we asked for, but we asked for some additional enhancements, to enhance our work. What's proposed by the mayor, is enough to keep us going for FY 26. And we have a really good relationship with the mayor's office, the budget office, and city administrator, that if we need additional resources, we just simply ask for it, and they're usually amenable to our requests.
They'll do reprogramming. Okay. The additional 12 FTEs for FY 26, how will they be utilized?
Yeah, we're pulling it. Give us a second, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Our 12 FTEs would be put 2 in our inspections and evaluations unit, 1 in our quality management unit, 2 in our investigations unit, 2 in our risk assessment and future planning unit, 2 in our audit unit, and 3 in our Medicaid fraud control unit.
I note that, thank you very much for that. Your Medicaid fraud division is very active. Usually, are you seeing an uptick in that kind of need more so than in the last couple of years? All right, and so within the 12, that attorney that you need is not there. That would be an addition.
And that program works so well that we want to keep that going with an additional to keep our cases moving. As you know, what's happening in the federal government within the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office, they're deviating their attention, from, the fraud work that we do. And so in order to keep our cases, on track, if we had an additional salsa, that would help with the prosecution of our cases.
Okay. And salsa is,
Special
okay.
Assistant United States Attorney.
All right, thank you. You mentioned in question 22 response to us that you were filling 2 vacant managerial decisions. Are these 2 positions reflected in the enhancement or in this 12 FTEs?
No, those are not part of the 12 FTEs in that enhancement request. These are just, vacancies within
All
our
right.
already available FTEs.
And to fill your vacancies, do you go through DCHR?
Yes, we work collaboratively with
All
with
right.
DCHR. We avail ourselves of all of DCHR's resources.
Okay. Did your agency suffer any cuts or reductions and now through, are you subjected to the 1.5% reduction because of FY 25 budget situation? Okay.
So we did comply with the mayor's order for fiscal year 25. And we asked for waivers for only programs that would keep our systems going. We've returned quite a bit, about $2 million overall between PS and MPS. For fiscal 26, we did not face any additional reductions.
All right. And so the areas where you made the return, I believe in your testimony, you spoke a little to that. But can you specify where you lost your 2 million?
We had 14 vacancies that we froze. And then we combed our budget and only asked for waivers for essentials. And so that was the remainder of the MPS return, 1.4 million.
All right. And so the 4 vacancies, are they, the 4 vacancies that are frozen, they are not in this 12?
No, they're not.
Okay,
They're-
just
they-
want to
they're
make sure.
And it's 14, not 4. 14.
14. You seem to get a lot of complaints regarding adult protective services. But you do not open many cases. I'm noting that, for instance, adult protective services, you actually open very few. I'm trying to read this little tiny chart, sorry.
Yeah, and I can explain.
Yeah,
I can explain.
Yeah.
that.
yeah, of the 101 cases, complaints that you received,
Yeah,
only 17 were open.
right. And see what you're seeing, those large numbers in
Yeah.
complaints we receive from Adult Protective Services is actually the result of increased collaboration with APS. Before, the last 2 years, we weren't receiving many referrals from APS. The director of our Medicaid Fraud Control Unit has improved, the relationship with APS. That's why you're seeing those large numbers. And just because we get a complaint or referral, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to result in a criminal investigation. It all depends on what's in the referral.
Okay, for FY 24, I just gave you the numbers. You had APS referrals, 101, 17 cases open. For 25 to date, 82 cases were referred and only 11 were opened.
Yeah, and that's not unusual. It isn't. APS has an obligation to send us these referrals when they suspect there's criminal misconduct. And they, err on the side of caution by making sure they provide us that so we can evaluate it to make sure there's enough information in there to pursue an investigation.
Okay, well, this is looking at contract steering. In 23, you received 13 complaints and 12 were, action was taken. In 24, contract steering, 20 complaints, 16 were managed. And to date in 25, you have 6 contract steering cases and 5 have been transferred to one of your units. I guess I'm very sensitive to adult protective services. As you know, we have seniors in our committee as well. And so it seems like that sort of human kind of element doesn't fit with the other cases that are referred to you. Am I
Yeah.
kind of touching on, I mean, you deal with first source, wage theft, contract steering, kickbacks to licenses. But when it comes to adult protective services, that's where you have huge complaints referred, but it's very few seem to fit the mold of what you are
Right.
interested in.
Okay, so with respect to what comes in from APS and what comes in the form of a contract steering allegation, they come in through two different channels. The APS referrals come into the Medicaid Fraud Control Unit. And again, there is a legal requirement for them to send these referrals to us. They're scrutinized by the Medicaid Fraud Control Unit team to determine if there's enough information in there to open an investigation. Whereas for contract steering, that information comes in through the hotline. And then they make a determination, they make a similar determination if there's enough information in there to embark on an investigation. So essentially, there's two different processes working. One on the APS side, where there's this requirement for you to tell us everything that you think, may be a violation, and we'll deal with it. And then on the investigation side, for contract steering, that stuff comes in, and 9 out of 10 times, we have to do something with it. Whereas the Medicaid Fraud Control Unit, they get to pick and choose which cases they're going to pursue based on their resources and the amount of information that they have to pursue the particular case. So there's two different processes that work, where one may seem like, that results in fewer criminal investigations as opposed to the other. It's two different processes at work.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Um, Well, I note for the public that in 23, 24, and thus far in 25, first source, only one of the within the 3 years, and wage theft, 5 in the from 23, 24, and 25. And that's important too, because that also is in this committee. And frequently we hear the chatter on the street that says these are areas that are very broken. But I'm seeing that you seldom have that kind of impact reported to you. So
Right.
this is important.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
And,
for
and
that.
also with respect to wage theft, sometimes those cases get referred to OAG to pursue.
Yes. 1, 2. All right, thanks for that. I mean, I just feel like sometimes we in the public, we scream a lot, but we don't really
Yeah.
take the necessary action, or maybe it's just celebrating the situation without really having evidence or proof that there's something wrong.
And what's good about what we do, even though we don't get specific complaints that come in through our hotline, our risk assessment and future planning unit is constantly looking out, over the horizon to see what's going on in the district. And they sometimes generate cases just by paying attention to what's being said in council hearings, what we're reading in the press, what we're hearing from public officials. So sometimes it doesn't come through the hotline and is captured here, but we are constantly keeping our ear to the ground to see if there's something going on that's within our swim lane.
I appreciate that so much, Mr. Lucas, because there are some areas that are somewhat concerning, and I'll follow up with you on a couple of things.
Absolutely. I look forward
Yes.
to it.
Yeah. Please tell us about the new confidential fund that you want to establish.
I don't believe we've started that quite yet, but it was one of the enhancement requests that we put in for our 26 budget that wasn't approved, but I think we were told it didn't require an enhancement, and we already had the authority to do that as an OIG. We've just not put the program together yet. But what it's going to do for us, it's going to allow us to confidentially provide resources to people who want to interact with our office that would facilitate our cases. Confidential funds are used by law enforcement all over the country, to include our MPD. We just look at it as another tool in our tool bag to facilitate our work.
All right, and so how would you establish that? I mean, what line items would you extract enough to create such a fund?
That's a good question. We haven't figured out where the money's going to come from, since we don't have a specific line item for it, which is why we haven't executed that yet.
All right.
Had we not been in this, resource constrained environment, we would probably already, be down the road in putting that together. But it is something that we're looking at probably funding out of our support fund at this juncture.
Support fund. Okay, as opposed to your Medicaid fraud area?
Well, the support fund would be used by both the Medicaid Fraud Control Unit and the Investigations Unit.
Okay, okay. All right. Mr. Lucas, I thank you very much and your team for being with us today. And we'll be talking with you. Thank you so very much.
And I look forward to it. Your Chairperson Bonds. I just want to put one more
Sure.
thing on the record. This is to the OIG team. Thank you for all the work you've done in FY25 in the challenging environment that we currently face. Keep up the good work.
Indeed. Well said. Thank you. Thank you so very much. I say that our committee is one of the most exciting parts of government, and that's why everyone's here, and that's why everyone's cheering. But thank you so very much. I know it's a little boring talking numbers and processes, but it is necessary. You're
Yes,
the
indeed.
compliance side of our government, so thank you very
All right.
much.
Thank you, Chair.
And so. Right. Well, with that said, we conclude the committee's budget oversight hearing today. I want to thank the public and for those who participated, and the committee does carefully consider public input, and we especially have several areas we need to follow up with some of our presenters today. We appreciate everyone's participation. Special thanks to the directors of each government agency we reviewed today and their team for their continued cooperation and collaboration with my office. Again, I encourage the public witnesses to submit your written testimony copy for inclusion in the official hearing record. Please upload your Word or PDF document to the council's hearing management system or email it to ceal@dccouncil.gov. That's CEAL@dccouncil.gov by 5 p.m. on Monday, June 16th, 2025. Again, the next meeting will be on Wednesday, June 4th at 12 p.m. We will examine the Workforce Investment Council and hear from public witnesses testifying regarding the Department of Employment Services. And then the following week, we will convene at 9 a.m. on Wednesday, June 11th, and we will be talking with the government witness for the Department of Employment Services. The time is now 3:15 p.m. on June 2nd, 2025, and concluding on the same day in which we started. With that, the meeting is adjourned. And thanks again to everyone. Yes. You too, yes.